What's good, everybody? This is TorraineWalker. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And thank you, everybody, for coming through and checking this out. I really appreciate you being there. This is the first live I've done on my YouTube channel. Normally, I do videos and I post like Black History facts. But since I'm starting this for the first time, I really wanted to get this brother on here. This brother is somebody we've talked on social media for a long time. I'm a really strong believer in what he stands for. So I wanted to give him a chance to talk about what he's doing. Um, Greg Marcel Dixon is currently a candidate for South Carolina's 6th Congressional District. The 6th Congressional District has been represented by Jim Clyburn since 1993. Marcel has made headlines recently by directly challenging Jim Clyburn and making reparations for Black Americans a foundational plank of his campaign. So everybody, please welcome Greg Marcel Dixon to the channel. Greg, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you, Torraine?
Doing good, man. Good. And again, man, thank you for coming through to chop it up with me about your campaign. Um,
Thank you for having me.
no, my pleasure. Well, let's get right into it. Let's talk a little bit about your background, your story, and let's talk a little bit about your political awakening because I definitely want to hear that. I'm sure the viewers want to hear that too.
I am born in Savannah, Georgia, but if anyone's been to Savannah, Georgia, you know it's only a little slither of the Savannah River that separates it from South Carolina. So I am raised, I've worked in, and I've lived my entire life in South Carolina in a rural coastal county called Jasper County, South Carolina. I am Gullah Geechee on both sides, my father's side and my mother's side, going back to at least the mid 1700s. I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for 17 years, and I am running against, as you say, Congressman Clyburn for South Carolina's 6th U.S. Congressional District. But what I'm running for, you've mentioned as well, is very important. I'm running for reparations.
All right. Well, your campaign seems to have tapped into an undercurrent of frustration that Black voters have with the Democratic establishment. Um, there, since the 2020 election, there's been a groundswell of frustration, and a lot of Black voters who usually never voice this sort of frustration. They're being very vocal about the fact that they feel left behind by the Democratic Party, they feel ignored, and they feel disrespected. Um, there's a feeling that Black concerns have been ignored and put on the back burner. And do you think that's true?
Yes, that's been true since the 1960s when we first started voting for the Democrats en masse. You see, I blame us for a lot of that, however. When you vote for a group over 90%, after that, is white men who vote for Republicans around 60 to 70%. But 95% is unheard of. We're the only group that just gives our vote to a party, policy be damned, just because they are of that party. We need to not be voting for a party. We need to be voting for policies. And I'm running as a Democrat, but I tell people if somebody comes along, a white Republican, for example, and they have policies that are going to specifically address the needs of Black Americans, especially the needs of Black Americans that are descendants of American slaves, by all means, vote for them. So the anger that is finally starting to climax, about time, that is really starting to be covered by the mainstream media, is definitely a legitimate anger.
What have you been hearing on the campaign trail, and what have you been hearing from Black constituents in your constituency about the effect that the Democratic Party has had in their constituency in the past maybe 20 years?
I have regret to me. I mean, you get the few who are sellouts or they think that they are Democrats before they are Black. Luckily, most people here, once you speak with them, they will readily agree we are Black before we are a Democrat. Okay. And even if we were voting mainly Republican, my attitude would be the same: Black before Republican, Black before any party affiliation. When I bring up to people, this is just recently, that the Democrats and the Republicans initially, but now Republicans are starting to kind of resist it, have sent trillions of dollars to Ukrainians who who's in Europe, are not Americans. They've received trillions of dollars in direct aid and in military equipment, and they're trying to bring 100,000 Ukrainians. We know that won't be it, over to the U.S. to give them resources in housing, healthcare, education, food, transportation. And yet, you look at the data where Black Americans are 15 to 20% of the American population, conservatively speaking. But over 55% of the homeless, we are the most likely to be evicted, most likely to be without a vehicle, most likely to be victims of malpractice, have the shortest lives. When you look at them pouring trillions of dollars into people who are not Americans while neglecting people who are Americans, who built America, and we are the only reason that the Democrats even exist as a party. Black Americans stop voting for the Democrats, they will cease to exist. When I bring that up to people, older people, younger people, middle-aged people, everyone quickly realizes, damn, we're Black first. Hell with being a Democrat. They're denying Black people because they'll look at every other group, Asian Americans, who got a bill to protect them. Yes, the implementation is race neutral, but the findings, the reason why the bill was written, it makes it very clear because of anti-Asian crimes, illegal immigrants. They're trying to give them citizenship and resources for housing, food, transportation, healthcare. LGBTQ and trans people, who make up a small percentage of the American population. Every other group, Native Americans, have gotten historic levels of funding under this administration, the segregationists. Every other group is getting specific policies except us. When I bring that argument to people, the vast majority agree with it. And even the ones that don't, they can't deny it. They sit there and sell out, but they cannot refute my points. I just left a county council meeting in Carleton County, the county where the Tuskegee Airmen practice, where Harriet Tubman came and rescued over 800 enslaved people from the Combahee River. I was just at a county council meeting with them, and I had some Democrat, not Black type people there, and I started proposing these questions to them. They could not answer. So even when people don't agree with me, they still can't defend and cannot offer up a justifiable explanation about why every other group gets policies from the Democrats, except for the group who are the most loyal Democratic voters and with whom the Democrats would not exist if we did not vote for them.
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you think there is so much pushback and there's so much avoidance of dealing with specific Black issues from the establishment Democrats or for the DNC?
Well, because historically speaking, whenever it is time to do something for Black Americans, okay, I need to make that very clear. If you're a Black immigrant, you know that we love us some immigrants. The Democrats do. I mean, we even got Joe Crow or Joe Biden, the segregationists who work with Ku Klux Klan members, the segregationists, and lock more Black people up than people in slavery. Him, he even said immigrants built this nation. Donald Trump at least said Black Americans built the nation. Joe Crow said immigrants built the nation. This is for Black Americans, descendants of American slaves. Look at the history of this country, Torraine. Okay, when it was slavery, the federal government had several opportunities to end slavery. Violence over the issue of slavery was happening throughout the history of the United States of America, whether it was our people revolting on the plantations, me being Gullah Geechee, me being here in South Carolina, the state that had the largest slave revolts,
Was the Stoner Rebellion, correct? Was it the Stoner Rebellion?
The Stoner Rebellion, yes. Mm-hmm. And then we know about Denmark Vesey, whose rebellion never quite happened because of Coons. Coons even existed then, selling out. Whether it was the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which led to Bleeding Kansas, whether it was John Brown, who was a true white ally, whose sons and he went and raided military storage in Harper's Ferry, which is now West Virginia, to stop slavery, whether it was fighting in the halls of Congress, we already saw that the issue of slavery was tearing this nation apart outside of being morally wrong. And what did this country do? They refused to do what was right. And we had a bloody, brutal civil war that saw 600,000 people die, 400,000 wounded, saw the South's infrastructure completely destroyed. Look at the civil rights movement. Instead of this nation living up to the constitutional promise, I need people to understand, It was never about us wanting to go to school with white people. My great-grandparents all told me that. It was about them wanting their tax dollars to go to their communities, their children. Integration was something that the Black Boule pushed on people. But this country already knew what it was doing was wrong with separate but unequal. Okay, separate, fine, but let's at least make it equitable. They could have done that right away. Like Don Martin Luther King Jr. said, it cost them nothing to drop Jim Crow redlining. Don Martin Luther King Jr. even had a study he cited. The country saw a big economic benefit from dropping redlining and Jim Crow. But what happened? You had people like Malcolm X, Medgar Evans, the 4 Black girls in the church in Birmingham, all killed because this country refused to do what was right. And when Don Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, you saw some of the most massive protests in American history. Now, here we are in the 3rd phase where America is getting another opportunity to see if it's going to do what is right, and that is reparations. Or are they going to sit there and watch things get to a violent climax, which we already see happening? And let me tell white people something who are anti-Black. If you think it's only going to hurt Black people, wrong. It's going to catch up with you too. The same way the drug epidemic did and is, it will eventually catch up with all of us. I say repair Black America to fix America. It should be repair Black America to save America. So that's why, Torraine, there has never been any point in this country's history where they have not resisted doing things that everyone can see was the right thing to do. It's anti-Blackness. But for the Black leaders in Congress, it is simply selling out. They don't want to go through the resistance that has always been characteristic of standing up for Black people. So what they try to do is try to use all these acceptable buzzwords, progressive.
Well, I'm actually going to ask you about. I actually want to ask you about that. It seems like whenever Black voters voice concerns about themselves or their specific communities, candidates immediately bundle those concerns into policies for people of color, or they use the idea of people of color to kind of as a catch-all phrase for everybody. Can you talk about why you made it a point to focus your campaign specifically on Black concerns? I think you were talking about it just now, but can you say why you specifically went there?
Right. Well, one, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, if you go to their webpage, they say making the quality of life better for Native Americans of any tribe. You go to the Hispanic caucus, and we know Hispanic is ethnicity. They can be white, they can be Black, but you won't know that. All they want to show are the whiter looking ones. That's what they really care about. But they say making the quality of life for Hispanic and Latinos better. You go to the Asian American Pacific Island caucus. They will only specify Asian American Pacific Islanders. You go to the so-called Black caucus. I call them the Congressional Slack caucus. They say Black and people of color. So why am I centering Black issues in my platform? Several reasons. One, a study by City Financial. And I know a lot of people want to argue against this study, and yet City Financial is one of the largest financial service providers in the world. It's one of those too big to fail companies. They said that since the year 2000, the United States of America has lost $16 trillion. Okay, right now, the U.S. is as rich as it's ever been, worth 19.2 trillion. So we would be twice as wealthy had we done reparations in the year 2000. You go back further, we lose more money. That is what is happening to us by not doing reparations. When Black America hurts, it hurts everyone. Yet when Black America does well, everyone does well. Second reason, Torraine, is because no one else was standing up for us. You know, if you are a good leader, a righteous-hearted leader, you are going to want to represent everyone. You're going to want to make sure everyone is taken care of. But you want to make sure the people who are the most endangered, who are the most in dire straits, are provided for. Like, I'm a teacher, right? I have to personalize my teaching for all my students. I teach over 100 students. If some of my students are strong in comprehension, okay, I want to challenge them. But if I have a student who is struggling in comprehension, I have to differentiate. I have to personalize. That student is going to need more assistance from me. It is the same thing politically. You look at the data. Black Americans, Our average wealth is $24,000. White Americans, 200,000. Asian Americans, something like 220,000. Hispanic Americans of any race, because they don't break it down by race, is going up. We are at 24,000 and going down. 20% of Black families have a net worth in the negatives. Our lives are the shortest. The life expectancy of Black men has actually decreased in recent years. Black women are 5 times more likely to die giving birth to a child in the richest country in the world than poor women in Mexico and the Philippines. Black women, proportionately speaking, may be the highest degreed, but they also have the highest eviction rate. They are also the most impoverished group in the United States of America, yet they have the highest student loan rate. Black men are the most likely to be homeless. Black children from ages 5 to 12 in that age range have the highest suicide rate, the most likely to die prematurely, have asthma. The list goes on and on and on. You name an area, and if it's bad, we are overrepresented. If it's something good, typically speaking, we are underrepresented. So if I'm in a neighborhood and I'm a firefighter, I'm not throwing water on the homes that are not on fire. I'm going to give attention to the home that's on fire, and that could be saved. Black America is the house that's on fire, but not because we've done it. It's been done to us. And if I am the arsonist, I have a responsibility to put out the fire I started, okay? And America likes to tell other countries like North Korea, Iran, democracy, be good to your people, repair what you've broken. America did this to Black Americans, not just chattel slavery, the destruction of Black Wall Streets, housing covenants.
Today's the anniversary of that, by the way.
Right. And this is the anniversary of the Black Wall Street in Tulsa. But there are so many more. Jim Crow, redlining, wage discrimination. The list goes on and on. They have a responsibility to fix what they have broken. And until they do, ain't nothing going to ever go right in this country. That's why, as wealthy as we are, we have developing world issues in regards to poverty, healthcare, education, food, access, water, you name it.
Okay. On that note, you've also made quite a few headlines, and you've got quite a bit of attention by pushing back against Congressman Jim Clyburn, who is currently representing the district you're running in. There was a video that went viral of you confronting him and his team outside of the campaign stop, and the response you got was, shall we say, less polite than most people would expect. Can you talk a little bit about the establishment Black leadership that we have in this country when it comes to legislation and when it comes to Black politicians? And do you feel that the overall group of Black politicians that we have in place now are responsive to the needs of the Black electorate?
So I must be talking about the one from last summer where I confronted him at the town hall. The Boule class, they never like it when you threaten their supply of, what people say, biscuits. Yeah, I mean, whenever you threaten their biscuit supply and, bobbing for biscuits, they're always going to be upset. So I wasn't surprised. But the people who know what our people is experiencing and enduring, they were happy. People were refreshed. Some people are still in shock to see someone speak up for our needs. Some people say they wait for me to slip in Black and brown or LGBTQ or minorities, and I don't do it. Some people literally have gone and searched through my videos to see if I'm going to go in and try to throw in people of color or some other group in there, and I don't. The biggest threat to anyone that's selling us out is us doing what I'm doing, running for office on an unapologetically Black agenda. And when I say Black, I mean Black American, but obviously Black people in this nation are indeed mistreated. But that will continue. Reparations is the payment of a debt they owe the descendants of American slaves. After that, we can deal with issues of anti-Blackness in general. I just want to make that very clear. But they're used to us being underrepresented. They're used to us being silent, wearing the scarlet A and sort of taking the abuse in silence and showing up and vote for them. It is our fault. It is our fault. I
But
remember
what
when
do you
I was
mean? What do you mean
watching.
now, when you say it's our fault, what do you mean?
We have allowed them to get comfortable disrespecting us. Let's look at some recent examples. Scamala, as I call her, Scamala was on Charlemagne the God show, whatever, who, by the way, is from my area. He was like an hour from me and has people on in politics, but has never had me on. But he was talking about reparations on Bill Maher's show like 2 weeks ago. Interesting, but we'll talk about it some other time. She went that whole I'm Kamala Harris waving her finger. That was
Oh no,
after she
no,
did.
I remember that. That was when he asked her about who
Who's
really
the
runs the White
president,
House,
Joe
who the
Manchin or
president is,
Joe
it Joe
Biden?
Manchin or Joe Biden, and she said, "Why
Well,
you asking me that? You're talking like a Republican." I remember that.
well, they use that one against me too. I'm talking like a Republican because I'm not for illegal immigration. No, I'm not giving you amnesty. I'm not for gun confiscation. No, Black Americans need our guns. Well, all of us should have it. And I'm not for us mass aborting Black babies. They don't incentivize abortion for any other group. We'll talk about that later probably. But that was after she did her whole, I'm not going to do benefit Black people. No. Okay, that's that. Joe Crow said that Charlemagne the God again. Man, he just sits there and takes it. You see, that's a microcosm of what we do. If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. Then you have Clyburn cursing a guy out, all because the guy said, reparations is a big deal. Why y'all keep F with me? Then you have the Congressional Slack Caucus when Black people did a poll that was on their Twitter page and said reparation was the most important topic for us. They still went ahead and tried to push voting rights down our throats. When voting rights is something that's supposed to be for everyone, stop trying to make that a Black issue. If voting rights is made more accessible for people, that's going to benefit everyone. Reparations is specific to us. Name one other group they treat that way. They don't even treat illegal immigrants who can't vote with such disrespect. Matter of fact, when an illegal went up to Joe Crow and started yelling and screaming at him, right, the last year of the Obama administration, he said, hey, calm down. I'm on your side. I'm on your side. That's how they treat them. When Asian Americans were going through their so-called few weeks of hate crimes, Senator Tammy Duckworth and Senator Hirono, they both said we weren't doing a damn thing until our people were protected. They're both of Asian descent, and they did it. Black Americans have asked, Benjamin Crump has asked for an anti-Black hate bill. None of them have even mentioned it. None of these sorry celebrities have even mentioned it. We have allowed them to get comfortable disrespecting us. Make America great again? I don't know about that. America ain't been going to be great until it pays reparations. Repair Black America to make America great. But let's make politicians afraid again. That's what I'm for. All politicians should have a healthy fear of their constituents. White people get that, okay? White people understand that. And I'm not just talking about white conservatives. I'm talking about white liberals too. White people understand that politicians should be afraid of their constituents. Am I pushing for violence? No, I'm not. Am I a nonviolent person? No, I'm not. I'm never going to be nonviolent. I'll be nonviolent when America goes nonviolent. Let's make that deal. Every group understands, Torraine, that a politician needs to be afraid, have faithful reverence for their constituents. We have forgotten that. We have had it where we make them think we work for them, that when they enter the building, we put roses at their feet. No, when you enter the building, we come to you and ask you what you've been doing. Why haven't you got this done? That's how it's supposed to be. Make politicians afraid again, Black America. Make it to where they will think twice before they disrespect us. So
well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. That's something I think people get twisted up sometimes. Is it the fact that we've allowed them to get comfortable, or have we allowed our spokespeople to allow them to get comfortable? Because I talk about this a lot on social media. There's a definite disconnect between poor and working class Black people and poor Black electorate and the leadership class, because the people who are in the ear of the power structure in America are not connected to the Black poor and working class. So are you talking about Black people in general have allowed them to do that, or has the people who are the gatekeepers of the Black electorate allowed us to do that? Because if you talk to people in the street, you hear a lot of what you're saying, but it doesn't translate up into the halls of power. What do you say both? What do you mean? Why do you say both?
Both. First of all, we have, the Tiffany Crosses, who has completely sold out. Man, she sold out like right before our eyes. Before she got her little show, she would actually say things like, you know what, let's criticize the Republicans, but let's criticize the Democrats, because the Democrats are the people for whom Black Americans vote. So they have a responsibility to do for us. She's over there saying things now like, well, if we don't give Biden, we'll get Trump. She's over there saying criminal justice is something Obama did for us. I guess only most Black Americans end up in jail, but most Black Americans are never in jail. And a lot of Black Americans who are in jail are wrongfully convicted. Being that we make up 70% of the wrongfully convicted, the Joy Reeds, the Jason Johnsons, we've allowed them to speak for us. We need to hold them accountable too. The media has a responsibility to call out public officials and speak for what is going on the ground. Look at these white conservatives. It's like these ones that are in little towns. Some of them are even broke poor. Fox News will go to them and get their voice amplified. It could be the craziest thing. QAnon. Marjorie Taylor Greene is in Congress right now because white Americans who believe in QAnon, whatever, conspiracy, their voices were heard. Now, ask yourself, which so-called Black media figure is coming down and speaking to Black Americans on the streets, in the stores? What do? They get their same boule class, the think group, the think class for Black Americans. They invite them on their show to have an echo chamber. It's like, okay, I have my show. I know you agree with me. I'm going to invite you on and have you say what you want to say. I'm not going to go in the streets and really speak to Black people. I'm going to find people who are going to say what I want them to say. That is what we have now. We've allowed that. We
I want to push back on you a little bit, not because I don't disagree with you, but here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that the Black electorate and the Black poor and working class have really allowed that. I think what's happened is that we as a people have this kind of idea of voting because we've been fed this idea of voting that every time we try to challenge, is what is voting doing for us? We get bombarded with these messages of, Dr. King. We get bombarded with that classic video of somebody getting rolled down the street by the water hose and dogs and everything like that. That's sort of like the go-to that people use to try to tell you need to vote because your ancestors died for that right. But nobody really wants to unpack that. And when you start talking about that, that's when you get a lot of pushback and you get a lot of condescension from people who claim to be your friends.
I'm going to say this. Our people, we have all the smoke for each other. I'm not one of those black on black crime people. We know that's a lie. But we have smoke for each other. I bumped you in the store. We will respond to each other aggressively. Look how we talk to each other on Twitter. We have smoke for each other. We're not afraid to have pushback. Like if you say something, I'm going to say something to you. We're not afraid to recoil and retort with each other. So I'm not making excuses for us. The same way we can push back at each other on the street, we can push back against these people trying to shame us. We are not kittens, okay? We're strong, bold, warrior people. So I'm not making any excuses for us. When they come to me with that, your ancestors died so you can have the right to vote. Your ancestors was out there now. Your great-grandmother now. When they try to come to me with that stuff, I said, no. Don't tell me why my ancestors died. Tell me why my ancestors lived. Don't tell me what they were dying trying to get. Tell me what they were living trying to get. They were living trying to keep our land that we've lost 15 million acres of out of the 16 million that they fought to get and keep. They died trying to get us to get equitable schools, which Black American schools are the most underfunded and are the most likely to have the least amount of college career-ready courses. They were living for us to get reparations. Stop telling me why they died and arrest the damn people that killed them. How that?
Some of those people are still alive too, which is crazy.
Exactly. So no, Torraine, I'm going to blame us again. We tough. We tough. I say something to somebody on Twitter. They say, "Give me your address, man. I'll run up on you. I'll slide up on you." But when Simone Sanders or D.L. Hughley go and get on and say, "You gotta vote. You gotta vote," we turn into Kenneth. Nah, don't make no excuses for us. Don't make no excuses for us. It is our fault. If poor white Americans can check people on Fox News, and they do, when Megyn Kelly went at Donald Trump, those poor white people were calling that station with their angry phone calls. There's no reason we can't do it. No, I'm not making an excuse for us. It's absolutely our fault. I'm not blaming us for the coons that we have in Congress because they're making that decision, but it's our fault that they have been allowed to coon and don't have any fear of doing it. How is it that Cori Bush ran saying reparations, her and Jamal Bowman, both, they haven't said a word about reparations outside of little symbolic fist pumps? They're saying black and brown and people of color, and we let them grow back up in our neighborhoods and they haven't been checked yet. That's our fault.
Well, let
Our
me ask
fault.
let me ask you this. Um, as you said earlier, the Black Power base in American politics is the Congressional Black Caucus. They are so firmly entrenched in Black politics and in American politics, but many younger voters feel shut out because of their entrenchment. You're an upstart candidate. You're a younger candidate. Um, what do you think? What kind of pushback do you think you're going to get trying to go up against that machine that is entrenched for like decades at this point? Because
I
I,
mean, I'm sure I'm already getting it.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that behind the scenes, they're they're doing all types of little shady stuff. They're probably calling media people. I get no exposure from so-called mainstream media. And you know what? Like I always say about us as Black Americans who are on code, you can ignore us, but you damn sure can't stop us because the new Black media, I can name over the 40 platforms I've been on. Y'all have made me. Y'all brought me this far. I should have never made it past the announcement of my election. I, most people campaign for 2 years. I started just 7 months ago. Never wanted to do politics. Had no connections, no money, no experience. Never wanted to do it. I started from scratch. Y'all planted this seed and have watched it sprout. And even if it doesn't grow fruit this season, it's going to come next season. So they've been telling the media, I'm sure the blacklist me, and the media being the anti-black cowards they are obeying. And that's the white ones too, the black ones. And I ain't talking about the conservative media. I'm talking about the so-called liberal democratic media. I'm sure they're doing that. I'm sure when I get to Congress, you're going to have, I mean, the Republicans, I expect the Republicans to be how they are because the Republicans aren't the ones getting 95% of black votes. The Democrats are getting our votes and doing nothing for us. That makes them worse than the Republicans. I expect when I get there, the Democrats, because that's what they are. When you are a Democrat, but you're not doing for black people, you are a Democrat. I expect them to try to not work with me, to try to make me a lame duck politician. And you know what I'm going to do? I don't know if y'all remember when Trump was in office and he was trying to do something and he wasn't getting support from the Republicans. And he went over and met with the Democrats. I don't know if y'all remember, it caused like a little bit of a firestorm. He was like, well, if I can't get anything done with the Republicans, I'm going to go to the Democrats. Watch me. I'm going to get things done. If I can't work with the Democrats, I work with the Republicans. Ideally, I would want to work with both, but I'm sure they're going to try to make me a lame duck politician, making sure I can't get anything done, trying to put me in a crap committee. But that's okay because I have the people behind me. You see, when they do that to me, I'm gonna need us to do what we have not historically done, but what white people do. I'm gonna need us to roll up on them. I'm gonna need us to blow their phones up. I'm gonna need us to write them. I'm gonna need us to go and check them.
Well,
Okay, at
that
their
brings
town hall.
that brings another question up. Um, I think because politics in America is so focused on social media and it's so focused on the quick fix of saying something slick to somebody online that people don't
Mm-hmm.
really understand how politicking works. And politicking, people don't understand how politics works. Um, People who are considered conservative in Congress, people who are considered ultra conservative, ultra progressive, they deal with each other all the time, and I don't think the public really
Yes.
understands that. People, let's just say, for example, somebody like an AOC, and that's another conversation, but somebody who like AOC who has the public image of somebody who's like hyper progressive, they sit behind closed doors and they talk to somebody like a Mitch McConnell all the time, and I think people don't understand
All
that
the time.
and people don't realize in the general, I think most people in the general public do that, but I think people who consider themselves political don't realize how much horse trading goes on back and forth between both sides of the aisle. And have you gotten a lot of pushback from that by saying that I'm willing to work with anybody, I'm willing to work with either party? Have you said that publicly?
From the from the and I don't know if you're on YouTube. I don't want to get your show sisters. Let me not say that word. From the raccoons who say that they're a Democrat before they're black. Oh yes, because they think that we should just give our votes to the Democrats. They make excuses for all of the stuff. They make excuses for the fact that we voted for the Democrats for the past 60 years, has own less homes now than we did during Jim Crow. They want to excuse it. It's the Republicans' fault.
Mm-hmm.
They make excuses for the fact that we are actually still, we own 0.5% of America's wealth at the end of slavery. Now we only own 2.6. And that's just civil rights legislation for the Democrats. Instead of them saying to the candidates, do something for my people, they make excuses for it. From those raccoons, yes, I do get pushback from them. From white liberals who think they are the king of the Negroes, with the crown on, yes, I get pushback from them. From the black people I speak with here in South Carolina, no, I don't get pushback from them. Their attitude is like, none of them care about us. And their attitude is like, hey, if someone's going to do something for us, let's give them a chance. Torraine, let me tell you what's going to happen. And I see this coming. If the Republicans were smart, which they're not, we know they're not. I mean, come on, look at them. Look, I mean, come on. Mitch McConnell, please. Kevin McCarthy, come on. And that guy in North Carolina in the wheelchair who just lost, I mean, come on. We ain't working with the sharpest tools, obviously. But if the Republicans were smart, the only thing the Republicans have to do is simply do a black agenda. I hate to keep bringing him up, but Donald Trump, as dumb as he might be, he really wasn't so dumb, socially speaking. He was on to something. Remember his little platinum plan that he was going to do for black people? The plan was
Ice Cube?
sorry. Huh?
You mean his or the one Ice Cube put together?
That I think Ice Cube was doing the Contract Black America, but I think the Platinum Plan came from his dialogue with Ice Cube. But remember, in Donald Trump's plan, he even said, "This is Donald Trump, the person everybody wants to tell us so anti-black." Donald Trump said in that plan, "America owes Black Americans." He said the Democrats have neglected Black Americans, and he was right. Donald Trump was the first president since I think I don't know the guy's name. Since what's the president's name? I can't remember the president's name. They actually have like a black agenda. That's crazy. Now I'm not saying his plan was good. It was really a lot of fluff. But look, even he realized he was on to something. He realized that the dumb Republicans can easily get black voters from the Democrats by doing something specifically for Black Americans. Okay? What I'm saying, Torrent, if the Democrats don't get it together, yes, it was President Grant. Thank you, Ryan Jackson, in the comments. President Grant. Yes, he was the last person that had like a separate black agenda. He realized that what I'm saying, Torrent, I am noticing something happening. And Tamara Shealy Johnson in Georgia, she says she's hearing it too, and she speaks to black voters. More and more black voters are warming up to our generation and younger are having the attitude of F the Democrats. They ain't doing nothing for us. More and more black voters are saying they'll be open to supporting a Republican if that Republican has good policies. Donald Trump saw an increase in his black support. Everybody was talking about black men. What they don't talk about is that black woman increased too in the support of Donald Trump.
Actually, let me throw some numbers out there really quick, because there was a lot of chatter about that after this election. Donald Trump's progress with Donald Trump's numbers with the black electorate at this last election, it was 14% black men, but it was also 9% black women. Now, those are very minuscule numbers, but you only heard about the black men who voted for Trump.
Exactly.
But the numbers for black women who voted for Trump doubled. But there was no conversation about that, because I think if you investigate that, then you have to talk about some of the feelings that we're talking about on this show. But go ahead.
There's a lot. I mean, how much? There's a lot we could talk to about these feminists, black women.
We'll say that for another.
Men
we'll go down that road.
Taken on white feminism, which is based on anti-blackness. Right. My point is this, Torrent, is that if all of them are dumb, all of them need to go in that Congress. But how dumb are you as the Democrats to ignore your loyal voter base? They think it's going to be business as usual. If nothing else, Torrent, me running my type of platform and standing my ground, that I'm not just putting black first, but black American first, not being afraid to say reparations first. The fact that I'm doing that, Torrent, This should be a wake-up call to the Democrats that things are not going to be the way they used to be. If Trump was able to see an increase in his black support, and Trump realized, wait a minute, black people are pretty angry with the Democrats. Why don't I do something and say it's going to be for black people? And he did it. Do they not think there's going to be a Republican that's going to come along eventually in the future who's going to be savvy enough to say, I have an idea. Let's go back to being the original Republican Party. The party that was originally pro-Black American was the Republicans. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, Torraine, but I'm running as a Democrat because they owe my people. They're not going to be in power for 60 years and not pay my people what they owe by giving a black agenda for us and reparations-centric black agenda.
All right, let me let's move on from that because I do want to get to this question.
Okay.
We've already talked about how the black electorate gets ignored. Let's talk a little bit about how the black electorate gets pandered to. I've been pretty vocal about this, and people notice about me. I personally was disgusted by some of the things I saw last year when the Democrats started, for lack of a better term, pandering to black voters. You saw "Get Your Booty to the Polls," which I personally hated. You saw old rappers coming out of retirement to talk about voting. You saw a lot of song and dance, and unfortunately, in black communities, this is traditionally how the establishment Democrats campaign with black voters. You get a lot of music, you get a lot of dance, you get a lot of
Yep.
pop blocking, and I was disgusted by that. And I've said that, if you go, and I've been around political campaigns, I've done this, I've covered campaigns as a journalist, I've covered different campaign strategies in different communities. When politicians go to every other ethnic group or every other minority group, they go in suits, they go with a folder, they go to a podium, and they tell you exactly how they're going to
Plans.
benefit your
Exactly.
constituency. When they come to black people, they show up with a sound system and they show up with dancing and they show up with strippers. What do you think about that? Do you think that the black electorate gets disrespected in that way? And why do you think that's happened so long? And why do you think that's tolerated?
I'm going to answer the second part. First, it happens so long because we allow it. Back to my original point. No making no excuses for us. We tough with each other on the street, but we weak with our politicians who are getting paid six figures and getting all types of other benefits and not doing a damn thing for us and watching us die. That's why it happens. Two, of course we get disrespected. I've made this point several times. Imagine if I got some maracas, I put on some salsa music, some Afro-Cuban salsa music, and I started doing the merengue, and I went to some people of Hispanic ethnicity with some tacos. They would be offended, and
They would run you
rightfully
up.
so.
They'd run you off the block first, though.
Exactly. Or imagine this. I put on a Japanese kimono, and I do a paper crane dance and a kung fu performance, and I start saying ching 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 yong in front of Asian Americans, and I say, okay, let's have some sushi. Y'all vote for me. They would be offended, and rightfully so. Or imagine I get a totem pole, a bow and arrow, build a teepee, and start doing a rain dance to some Native
Mhm.
Americans, acting like they're all the same. They will be offended. But when it comes to Black Americans, apparently all you gotta do is make some soul food, put on some nice hip hop music, do some nice dancing, go sing some gospel songs, go to church, and talk about natural hair, and trying to go into this Black coolness, and we give them our vote. Who do you blame for that? Do you blame the people who are disrespecting us? Yes, it's disgusting, or do you blame the people who allowed that and vote for them anyway? That's our fault. What I am doing, Torraine, why I'm on your show, why when I am engaging people, I always put my website up there. I'm trying to get us to think policy, policy, policy. Earn your vote. Show what you're going to do for people, and not just people, your specific people. No other group has a problem saying, You don't hear Asian Americans saying, what are you going to do for everyone? Asian Americans say, what are you going to do for Asian Americans? Hispanic Latinos say, what are you going to do for Hispanic and Latinos? Native Americans, what are you going to do for Native Americans? We are the only group afraid to say, what are you going to do for Black Americans? We built the place and it owes us more than any other group. We got to learn to be unafraid to say, what are you going to do for Black people and Black Americans specifically?
Okay. How do you intend to recenter the issues of Black Americans in American politics?
What I'm doing right now, I've already done it. I'm not saying it's done, but and I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I would say I've helped change the conversation already because I was on a show. I forgot TD Hip Hop News, and he was, he goes on YouTube and he always studies stuff, and he's always turning to James Clyburn, and he was showing me candidates who were running kind of like me, like supposed to be grassroots. Mm-hmm. How when they started, they said nothing about reparations, nothing about a Black agenda. Now he showed me how several of them are saying reparations, Black agenda. Some of them have even come into into Twitter when I'm on Twitter Spaces and trying to connect with me. I'm not saying that's only because of me. It ain't because of me. It's because of y'all. Y'all have kept me going. I am recentering Black American issues by running on a Black American first platform and doing so unapologetically. The only thing left is when I get to Congress, I'll have the power to write legislation, but I will have a larger platform. So when these boule people like Dia Hughley, Simone Sanders, all those ones that get on the news, Michael Harriot, who I destroyed in that discussion about race versus lineage, when they get on the news and they're trying not to say anything specifically about us, I will now have a large national platform where I can reach millions with just a tweet, and our issues will no longer be able to be ignored. That's how. And by encouraging other people to do what I'm doing right now.
Okay. Let's bring it back to your core issue, reparations. In politics and in the legislature, the current official policy, well, the only current official agenda bill regarding reparations is HR 40, which is people refer to it as the reparations bill, but really it's only a motion for a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. So basically, it's basically an outline for a study. It's not hard policy. Reparations for Black Americans, as I said, is a cornerstone of your campaign. What sort of response have you received about that from people already in government and voters in your district about reparations?
I'm sorry, say that last part again. Your voice cut out a little.
I said, what kind of response have you received from people already working in government about your passion and your cornerstone platform of reparations?
Oh, okay, that's important. People already working in the government, I get the same typical. First thing they do is they agree with me that Black Americans are mistreated. You know, Beto O'Rourke. Remember how when he got all that praise because he defended Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and then somebody asked him about reparations, and instead of answering the question, he went down a whole history lesson like we don't know our history. You know how they do that? Like when we asked them about specific things for Black Americans, Skamala did it too. Skamala, as I call her. She went down the history. Like, we don't need to know the history. We know the history. That's why we ask about reparations. They'll do that to me, right? And then they'll go, but you gotta, okay now, but you gotta ease it in there now. You can't come out and say it because then they're gonna stop you now. I get a lot of that. Soft peddling, tiptoeing, scared Negro talk. That's been my response to people in government. Now, people on the street, 2 responses. And I'm gonna tell you, in the 7 months I've been campaigning, and really in the last 3 months I've been the most active, I have seen a massive ideological change trend. When I first started, I would say reparations, and people will look at me like a really befuddled look. Like, okay, like that's a little out there. Or some people will be like, yeah. Or some people will just be like, okay, yeah, reparations, but let's talk about housing. They'll be like, that's just not realistic. I just had Hoon tell me in this county meeting I just left that my platform was idealistic, unrealistic. I shut that down. Packed his bag and made him a lunch too. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But now, though, recently, when I say reparations, I get hell yeah. They should have done that a long time ago. I mean, so the ideological shift has changed. So I will agree with you when you say that there is a major disconnect from what the attitude on the street to the attitude in Congress. And that buffer class, like the Jason Johnsons and the Tiffany Crosses and the Joy Reeds and the Craig Melvins, yes, they do a good job. But I'm not just going to blame them because we allow them. They do a good job of trying to represent how we fail by never speaking with us and not saying what we really want. And what Black Americans want, as shown by polls, is reparations. And on the ground, the support there among Black Americans is amazing. And even a lot of white Americans Are there a lot of white Americans that are anti-black scum? Yes, there is. And I will always say that. Are there a lot of white Americans who are not? They're just probably misinformed about reparation? Yes, there is. Are there a lot of white Americans out there who are for reparations and really know this country owes us something? Yes, there are. And let me tell you something really funny, Torraine. I have met a lot of white Republicans, and you'll be surprised how many of them agree with reparations. Oh, like, people like to talk about Ann Coulter. There are some of them like that in my district. I think they probably do it because they realize that it's much better to invest in Black Americans who are Americans than in illegal immigrants, Afghanis, Ukrainians.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you had a lot of pushback from the Democratic establishment about that? Because you've been very vocal about the fact that your focus is Black Americans and that's how you want to have your campaign centered around. Have you gotten a lot of pushback from people in government about that, by the fact that you speak specifically for Black Americans? You don't include anybody else?
To my face, they wouldn't dare because they know I jump on them. They know I'll tear them up. They know that. To my face, no. But I can tell they don't like it because they never do it themselves. Like every time I give a speech and I leave the stage, they'll come up there saying, "Yeah, we as Black people, we're old, but let's talk about all the progress we made." Like Clyburn's main thing right now is trying to use Coon Tanji Jackson Brown as his thing of doing things for Black Americans. And they will use that to try to distract from the fact that with 15 to 20% of the population, over 55% of the homeless, we own only 1 million acres of land. After reaching a historic 16 million, we've had 15 million stolen. Nothing's been done about it for us. I can go on with the statistics I've already named. Owning less homes now than Jim Crow. They never address that. They try to do this whole hooray, Black woman. Look how educated you are. Look at y'all strolling to the polls in your high heels. They do all this symbolism stuff instead of real policies. So they don't give me pushback overtly because they know I'll jump on them, but they do it ideologically, politically, and that is more dangerous actually than the overt, I don't like that type of resistance.
All right. We're getting close to we're gonna wind down, and I want to finish out with this last question because this is very important. Um, you're campaigning against Jim Clyburn. As most of us know, and most people on this live pretty much know, Jim Clyburn is a kingmaker and a godfather in Black Democratic politics. Jim Clyburn is a politician with a deep war chest and connections that run like decades deep in the Beltway. As I said at the top of the show, you're running an Our Start campaign. And what do you think your chances are up against that level of influence? And how will you make the case to voters in the 6th District of South Carolina that you are the better choice?
Well, I bet I had already made it to them because this voting started today, but I have been making it and I will continue to. I've been showing them the data. I've been showing them here. Let me just focus on the district, not even America. 6th poorest district out of 435 years. He's been there for 30 years. That is inexcusable to be poorer than 429 other districts. For children, 3rd poorest district out of 435 after 30 years. He has the worst water quality in the U.S. He has the communities with the worst health outcomes in the U.S. In Columbia, South Carolina, the capital, you got Black people. It's an epidemic because the Center for Disease Control called it epidemic of Black people getting their toes, fingers, hands, feet, legs chopped off because of simple things like diabetes and high blood pressure because they don't have any hospitals. They don't have any doctors. Y'all can look it up in the state newspaper. Denmark, South Carolina, doesn't have clean water and hasn't had it in 10 years. A small, majority Black rural town. We have some of the worst performing schools in the nation. We have the highest eviction rate in the nation. Okay? I say to people, you can make excuses for him, blame the Republicans. He signed up for the job, and yet y'all want to give him credit for good things, but then y'all want to say he's not responsible for the bad things. It don't work that way. I said you can make excuses for him, or you can make a change by voting for me. And then I show them what I am going to do, and I let them know how I am going to do it. I tell them the choice is yours. If you vote for Clyburn, you vote for more of the same. Don't you dare complain when your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who own less homes than you did during Jim Crow are out on the street, can't find a job, can't afford school, unemployed, and most of us are homeless without any resources, and we're being treated like fifth-class citizens. And my chances of winning, one poll that was leaked For someone who's on the inside, show me getting as much as 45% of the vote on election day. But that was months ago. That was before I started doing all this mass campaigning. 45% is a lot, but that ain't going to cut it. I need to get at least 60%. I want to have some cushion between my win. So that's why I'm glad you had me on. And if anyone's in the room, if there was ever a time I needed people to donate, it would be now. And it's marcelforcongress.com/donate.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, let people know how they can reach you and how they can check out your campaign and donate if they need to.
Okay, so marcelforcongress.com/donate. And Marcel is spelled Marcel. I want to say to people what I'm doing right now. This is the final stretch. So I've really been doing as much as I humanly can. Billboards all throughout my district. Okay, we have mass emails going out, mass texts. Phone banking is happening right now as we speak. If you want to sign up, just contact me mainly on Twitter, Marcel4Congress, or you can email me at repairblackAmerica@marcelforcongress.com. We have TV commercials playing in all the markets in my district, which is Augusta, Georgia, Columbia, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia. Okay, we have people right now who's been doing this. Over hundreds of thousands of homes right now as we speak are getting flyers delivered to them. We've been doing that though. Okay, we've been talking to people from the church community, talking to people who are not religious at all. We've been going to restaurants, barbershops, hair salons, nightclubs, bars. We've been doing commercials on television. So every cent you send me helps me to get my name out there more. Clyburn is only going to win this if we allow him to. So marcelforcongress.com/donate. Voting began today and it goes until June 14th. If you are in my district, tell other people about me. If you know someone that has a platform that has a small amount of viewers or a large amount of viewers, tell them they're welcome to have me on if they would like, because I talk to everyone, whether you agree with me or not. I really don't duck smoke. I'll have good faith conversations when I see their good faith.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for showing up on my live. You're the first guest I've had on my new live show. Thank you so much again. Everybody, go check out Marcel's website, check out Marcel for Congress, and also support the channel. If you like the content we're putting together here, support the channel. Cash App, TorraineWalker, PayPal, Real TorraineWalker. I also have a Patreon, TorraineWalker. Everything's under my name. And check out the site. I'm TorraineWalker on Twitter and IG. I get a lot of mileage out of my name because nobody else has it. And my website is TorraineWalker.com. Thank you so much, Marcel. Good luck with everything, and thank you for showing up, brother.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Everybody have a good night. Thank you so much for coming through. Y'all take care.